Dan Schneider.
Bring all my bitches back. I need all my bitches. 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 I need all my bitches.
You know, I made a decent video a number of years ago chronicling the Disney curse for child actors who were previously on Disney Channel. Decent video if you guys can stomach the very ponce Cockeye accent. The dirtier, the better. Yeah, I don't know what I was trying to do there. please forgive me. No. But now we are moving on to the degeneracy of Nickelodeon and the skeletons in their slime-filled closet. More specifically, the underage feet connoisseur himself, Dan the overweight Discord man Schneider. Now, odds are, if you're between the ages of 20 and 27 and saw a lot of tween sitcoms back in the day, you'll probably come across this guy's work at some point. Drake and Josh, Victorious, Zoey 101, Good Burger, I, Michael Jackson, all shows produced and written by this jolly big fellow over here. And that would all be well and good, except over the years there have been a lot of complaints in the way that Mr. Schneider has treated his young actors and overall conducted his business. Oh yes, we run the full gambit of rotten behavior here. From racism to gender discrimination, all the way down to sexual innuendo in his writing. And just overall weird and suspect behavior between him and his actresses specifically. Oh yeah, and the feet thing. Yeah, can't forget about that, as much as I would like to. But honestly, what I just showed you guys is nothing new. These allegations have been circling this guy since like 2018, which probably contributed in some way to his departure from Nickelodeon around that time as well. So you might be asking yourself, why Dan Schneider is back in the limelight? Why am I talking about him today? Well, recently, a documentary released on HBO Max called
The Dark Side of Kids TV.
Quite the dramatic title. I like it. But anyway, it essentially looks at the work environment of the late 90s to early and mid 2000s kids sitcoms, like the ones I mentioned previously. What the actors and staff had to go through, how it shaped them to what they are today, and what do you know, Dan Schneider has been, at least so far, the most talked about figure on the show. Because go figure, he pretty much dominated kids sitcoms during this period. So that is essentially what is causing a lot of people to revisit these allegations right now. I haven't personally seen the documentary in full yet myself, but it definitely does look like an interesting watch for sure. However, I'm not sure how reliable these previous actors and staff members are, as it doesn't look like there's a lot of hard proof or evidence given outside of personal testimony. The only accusations I'm 100% certain about at this point are the ones made by Drake Bell, where apparently he got sexually abused by the dialogue coach of Drake and Josh, some guy named Brian Peck, which is confirmed because he did end up going to jail for lewd acts with the unidentified child in 2003, who I guess is now revealed to actually have been Drake himself. Pretty fucked up stuff, and even though it wasn't technically Schneider who committed the act, it's reported that this dialogue coach worked on a lot of his other previous shows as well, so definitely guilty by association thing for sure, and the countless other testimonies of weird and creepy behavior with Schneider is definitely not helping his case. So following the release of this documentary and the new wave of backlash, Schneider felt that now it was the appropriate time, 6 years late and $1 short, to finally speak about the similar allegations brought up against him through this documentary. And who better to conduct this interview with good old Dan than Tebow, the great African-American stick salesman. Yeah, it goes about as well as you think it does.
And how are you?
I'm okay. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about what we saw over the last 2 nights.
I'm really glad you're here because I believe this is important.
For sure.
We've got a lot of things to unpack. But before I dive into my list of topics that I'd like to discuss, is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well.
Nice, Dan. Very nice. Starting things off with a straight-up confession to one of the allegations. Gotta love it. On one hand, I can appreciate, at least he's not trying to bullshit his way out of what he did and is owning up to it. But at the same time, you're basically admitting, in my opinion, to one of the more creepy allegations next to the whole feet thing. So, not painting a good picture for yourself here, yet again.
Hundreds of episodes. Thousands of jokes have been told.
Yeah.
But currently where we are, some people think that some of those jokes are inappropriate for children. What do you think of that?
All these jokes that you're speaking of, that the show covered over the past 2 nights, every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny and only funny. Okay? Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid's show. And I have no problem with that. If that's how anyone feels, let's cut those jokes out of the show. Just like I would have done 20 years ago or 25 years ago. I cut it. I want my shows to be popular. I want everyone to like. The more people who like the shows, the happier I am.
See, this unfortunately is a trend you're going to see a lot throughout this interview. Very general or vague question replied with very hand-wavy explanation and or straight-up admission and apology from Dan, followed with no clarification or further questions to prod for why these decisions were even made in the first place. I'm assuming this question discounts Snoop Dogg asked Dan with regards to the inappropriate jokes is referring to the weird sexual innuendo and risque scenarios that were in some of his shows. You're really telling me that Dan sat a bunch of kids down and asked them, "Hiya, kids. What's a funny scene you want to see in this week's episode of iCarly?" "I want to see Carly lick the toe fungus off of Sam's big toe." Yeah, that'd be hilarious. And even if this scenario is somehow true, isn't it up to you as the producer to kind of put your foot down and say no? Like we're not gonna do that? Hey, Matt, listen, bro. You can remove it if you want. I got the originals on DVD.
Brian Peck was not hired by you.
No, I did not hire Brian Peck.
This was a Tolan Robbins production?
Yeah. And when Drake and I talked and he told me what had happened, I was more devastated by that than anything that ever happened to me in my career thus far. And I told him, I'm here for you. What do you need? Which Drake mentioned in the show that we watched last night. And next, I heard that he went to court when this guy was being tried, Peck. And when Drake walked in, he saw 50 people sitting on the side of the courtroom supporting Peck. A lot of them pretty famous. Of course, Drake was devastated that happened. And even more disappointing, 41 of those people wrote letters for Peck, character letters, praising him for who he was and asking for leniency, and they knew that he was guilty. They knew he had confessed to some degree, and they still did this. That's baffling that adults would do that.
So it looks like this is just more confirmation of Drake's story being true, but I guess it also confirms that Dan didn't vouch for Peck's hiring originally. The way he talks about him, I get the vibe that they maybe were not all that close to begin with and just happened to work together on a few projects here and there. Again, I don't really know for sure because T-Bone doesn't really press him too heavily on his relationship with Peck, if there is any at all, but that's the general assumption I gathered from that conversation. So no actual sexual predator tag teaming as far as we know yet, which is always a good thing. 2 predators are always worse than 1. But yeah, the interview goes on to discuss the racism allegations and payment allegations. But to me personally, I didn't really give a shit about those to begin with. The entertainment industry is rifled with that shit. And I'm sure Dan wasn't solely responsible for all of it himself. But feel free to check out the interview if you guys like. It's certainly more of a puff piece, and I wish it did dive a bit deeper into some of the more serious accusations. But I guess it is what it is. Wrapping things up here from the current information we have knowledge about, It's clear that Dan Schneider is a pretty creepy guy. Based on the evidence we have right now, though, it's clear that he hasn't crossed that line into being like a full-on rapist yet. I'm honestly more surprised that this Peck guy isn't getting more shit because he was actually tried and convicted of ringing Drake's underage bell. But I guess Schneider's name and position is more prominent, so his questionable activities kind of overshadowed everything. But feel free to let me know what you guys think about the Dan Schneider accusations. I know the Quiet on Set docuseries still has an episode coming out sometime next month, so it's possible we might get more details regarding the current accusations, or God forbid, get introduced to some new ones. Look forward to reading your guys' thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.